This is Akashvani. Time for a weekly program, Our Guest. I hand over the mic to the show host, Nitish Arora, for the same.
Today is International Justice Day. Justice is something which humanity has always strived to have, but then many times it is denied. So there are lots of institutions that are in place to deliver justice and in time. So in this context, we today have in our studios as our guest, Miss Amber Tickoo. She is a lawyer from National Law University, Delhi, and currently is preparing for the civil services. Amber, welcome to Our Guest.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
So tell us what is the background of this particular day?
International Day of Justice is basically the day which is celebrated as when the Rome Statute or the treaty which established the International Criminal Court, that was adopted. So it's a very important day for victims of heinous crimes around the world, because this day, in a way, it guarantees them protection against some of the most serious crimes. And this treaty was established in 2002, and that's when the court came into existence. And it stands in the legal capital of the world, which is The Hague in Netherlands. The day is celebrated as the International Day of Justice.
Right.
It's very important in the sense that it guarantees that protection in terms of an international criminal justice system is there in place. So what the treaty and what the court seeks to protect is, it basically categorizes crimes into four major categories. It's war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression. So whoever are the parties to the Rome Statute or to the International Criminal Court, they are guaranteed protection from these crimes.
So they must be having themes for every year, because whenever we observe a particular day, every year it comes with a theme to focus concentration on what exactly is required. So what is the theme this year?
Well, sir, the theme for this year is overcoming barriers and unleashing opportunities for social justice, which basically means that all the marginalized communities, especially which are more vulnerable to such serious crimes, they are able to access protection under the Rome Statute. And social justice is obviously very complementary to what Rome Statute and the ICC seek to protect, which is basically to protect people from crimes which threaten international peace and security. So there is definitely an angle of social justice there too, that we are able to rehabilitate those victims properly, and we are able to reintegrate them into the society and heal whatever they've gone through.
So very often this Rome Statute is coming into our conversation. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What exactly is that?
It's Rome Statute because Rome was the city where the treaty was actually adopted. So that is where it gets the name from. But that is the only relevance that the word Rome Statute has as far as this treaty and the court is concerned. But yes, the background to this court is that it was actually, there were tribunals in the 90s which were established. It was International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia and International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. But these were very temporary in nature. But then it was later on, it was the country of Trinidad and Tobago. They were the ones who requested the UN Commission to set up a permanent court which can, address certain such crimes. And that is when negotiations started, and then ultimately a lot of effort and cooperation went into it, and finally in 2002 in the city of Rome they decided to give signature to this treaty, and around 120 countries today are party to this treaty.
Amber, the more we want to deliver justice to the people, we find that the rate of crime has increased, and they've increased many folds. So what are the challenges while we're talking about delivering justice to the last victim as well?
That is a very important challenge that the world is facing today. That is something that the best legal experts around the world, the best leaders around the world have put their mind to it. And that is something we continuously have to deal with and see how we can come up with new solutions to reach those people. But I think the Rome Statute and the International Criminal Court is that step in that direction, wherein for example, victims in the most impoverished countries, for example, many of the African countries, where routinely such crimes occur, and those people, because once they face these crimes, it becomes very difficult for them to rise from poverty, which they are already facing, and then to reintegrate themselves back into the society. So in that sense, there's a lot of deliberations taking place in the United Nations. India, while it is not a party to the Rome Statute, but India has routinely raised these concerns in the United Nations. And we have said that we will cooperate in that underlying principle of delivering international justice.
You have just finished your studies in law, and just tell us what brought you to law, and what do you think that how a lawyer can be contributor to peace and prosperity?
So I think law is one of the most noble professions, especially when you, I was a humanities student, so I was very much engaged in I used to read about the freedom struggle of India very deeply, and I would see that most of our freedom fighters, they had a background in law. And that really inspired me. I thought that law is very, very instrumental in forming a significant career, in public service, because it tells you about rights, it tells you about the duty of state, the duty of citizens, and the relationship that exists between the two. And justice is always a very noble virtue to aspire for. So that was my motivation. And now that I'm here, the idea is to use this profession in a way that is most empowering for the most marginalized sections of society, so that, they can be uplifted and they can access justice in the same way that other sections of society can.
Well, I don't know whether I should be asking this question, because justice says that you have to deliver justice to every human being, and a lawyer says that I have to protect my client. So many a times we see in courts that lawyers are fighting for criminals. What is your take on that?
That's a very interesting observation, sir, but I think that
is it only an observation or
it is the truth? It is the truth. And it's something that I, as a law student, have always grappled with. I also had similar questions. But what I have found in my training as a lawyer is that the right to get justice, the right to get a fair trial, is also a very important part of law. It's as much a sacred human right as any other human right. So it is important even for those people who have been accused of crimes which make us very uncomfortable to listen to. But it is important for those people also to get justice, because that is what our constitution has been founded on. That is the values that we have established our society on, that every person should have the right to a free trial. So that is the principle within which advocates defend their clients.
Mahatma Gandhi also said that hate the crime, not the criminal.
Exactly.
I think that puts your answer into a perspective.
Definitely. That's the best conclusion to that answer.
When we talk about justice, we also talk about one particular phrase which is quoted everywhere: justice delayed is justice denied. And many a times in the pursuit of justice, it takes so much of time that it hardly matters whether the justice is delivered or not.
Definitely, sir. I mean, the challenges that we have in this field range from just the burden that is in the courts, and courts are supremely burdened, and there's a lot of delay that is happening. That has to be one of the biggest challenges that especially Indian justice system deals with. And the judiciary is working all around the clock to help to address those concerns. I think that is definitely one big concern. But another is also that we have to staff our judiciary at every level possible. There are vacancies at multiple levels, and we have to ensure that those vacancies get staffed as soon as possible. And more importantly it's to ensure that every person in our society gets justice, and quality justice. There are many people in our country who do not have access to the best of lawyers, to the best of legal service. So it's important to ensure that those people have access to quality legal service, so that they are able to at least have a decent chance in their cases. So I think these are the twin challenges that Indian judiciary is currently dealing with.
So International Justice Day, which is today and a very relevant day, how are the countries which are signatories to this particular treaty, what are their obligations?
So the treaty is very interesting in the sense that it does not seek to replace national jurisdiction. It's only when a crime takes place in those countries, or there is an accused who is a citizen of those countries who are party to this treaty, it is in those cases that the treaty gets triggered. But that also only happens if the courts in that country are unable or unwilling to prosecute for those crimes. So it's not complementary to the national jurisdictional system. It's merely there to help them to step in case the domestic legal machinery proves to be inadequate. And this is the reason actually why India did not sign the treaty, because India believes that our domestic legal machinery is quite adequate to address such concerns. So we may not need an ICC to step in. But in many countries, for example, many countries in Africa, Uganda, Mali, and Democratic Republic of Congo, the civil wars there have been of such a nature that the entire system collapses. So it becomes very difficult for the national courts there to rise to the occasion and prosecute those criminals. And that is where the International Criminal Court steps in, and they say that we are here to help you, and the prosecutor determines that a case has been made out for prosecuting under the treaty.
But that also brings me to another question, which is terrorism. Terrorism for certain states is a state policy. And certain states will say that the person who is against the law is a terrorist, and for the other country or for some other group, those terrorists are freedom fighters. So what is the locus standi of this ICC treaty on terror?
So unfortunately, that is a big lacuna within the Rome Statute, that it does not address the problem of terrorism adequately. In fact, I would say it does not address it at all. It does mention genocide, war crimes, crimes of aggression, crimes against humanity, and within those you could read acts which do...
We have seen terrorists creating situations like genocides.
Absolutely, which is what it can be argued that terrorism would fit within one of those definitions.
But that state genocide is which is covered here.
Exactly. It is the state genocide, somebody in the state machinery which commits that. But there are non-state actors also, in case of terrorism especially, which commit these crimes. So I believe that definitely a case is made out for making terrorism a separate category within the statute. But as we already know that there hasn't been international consensus on arriving at a definition of terrorism. So I think that would be a big challenge going forwards. I think countries will have to come together to formulate that. Until that consensus evolves, I don't think we will see that being addressed under the Rome Statute.
Well, this International Justice Day came into force only 2 decades ago.
Yes, sir.
Still lots and lots of work is required to be done. And that is a step in a right direction. Is there anything more that you want to add to today's conversation? Because we are at the fag end of it.
I think that justice is something that we should always remind ourselves of how important a place it has in our society, because very often we tend to forget how important it is for things to be just. And justice means basically, if you would ask in layman terms, it means to be fair. And fairness is something we all strive for in our daily lives. At the macro levels also, we always try to look for fairness in things. We try to eliminate arbitrariness from things and processes as much as possible. So I think it's important for the young people in this country and the old people also in this country, for all of us to realize how important a role justice plays in our lives. Whether it be in the form of the constitution that we have, whether it is in the form of the courts that we have established, or in the form of the small lok adalats that we have in our neighborhoods. All of these rudimentary structures also play a very, very important part in bringing justice to our everyday lives.
And every individual has to open his or her eyes for justice, that it is meted out to every individual.
Definitely.
Amber, thank you so much for being our guest today.
It was my honor, sir. Thank you.
You were listening to the weekly program Our Guest, that is broadcast every Monday at 9:15 a.m. Don't forget to tune in next week, same day, same time and same frequency for more on Our Guest. Have a nice day.